I got off the plane, like these guys came up and started like speaking Spanish to me and this one girl that I was with, and we like didn't know what was going on. We didn't know they were like being creepy towards us, but they were. And so like we just thought everyone was like, we were like super friendly like to everyone. And I think it's just like knowing your place, like being kind but not like overly friendly to some people because they take it the wrong way at times. And I think the first few days, so my first day in the mission field, it was really hard. I got a parasite my first day and I didn't know about it. So I was walking around feeling like I was gonna pass out. I had to go to the bathroom like every 15 minutes. I felt terrible. Went to the bishop's house, they made a soup. I'm like eating the soup and I like look at my companion, I'm like, I can't eat anymore, like I feel so sick. And she's like, no, you have to eat everything. Then I throw up all over the bishop's table. This was my first day on the mission, meeting the bishop. He'd just given me a blessing. And then we walked to the apartment. I have a fever of like 103. The elders come over, give me a blessing. I sleep for 18 hours. I was super sick. I could barely like move. So I'm just thinking, what in the world am I doing here? Like, why did I want to go on a mission so bad? Like, this is so painful. Like, this hurts. And the first like couple of weeks were like that because the elders that got my results from the nurse, because I went to go get a test done for parasites, didn't tell the nurse that I had parasites. So I was walking around with, like, they didn't give me like medicine or anything like that because the nurse didn't know, the mission nurse. So I was sick for like the first 6 weeks. So that was really hard. And then when I got the medicine, it got a lot better. And as I opened up to the members, as I realized that it's okay if I don't speak Spanish perfectly, it's okay if I ask them what they just said so they can repeat it slowly to me. Some people would get upset, but the majority of the people were really understanding and very loving, and they even like would make jokes about it. And at first it was hard for me, but I really had to humble myself. And once I humbled myself, I feel that I felt more comfortable with the country, with the people, with the language, and I felt like I was really a missionary at that point. So I remember this, my second P day, very well. I went to the internet cafe and I just like was like, I'm not gonna lie, like this is so hard. And they, like, my companion had Josh Groban's You Raise Me Up like on her music thing. It was approved by the mission office. But I mean, and so like that song kept going through my head and I realized that I couldn't do this alone, that I needed Heavenly Father and I needed to like seek out help. And so once I realized that, it helped me to go to the Lord more. I realized I couldn't call my mom anymore. I couldn't go talk to my best friend, but that I needed to really build a relationship with God at that point in order to get through all of this, because it was really hard in the beginning to want to stay there and to be positive about it. And as I turned to Him, I was able to enjoy my mission a lot more. I think what surprised me a lot in the beginning is the form of transportation in the mission. So they have lots of buses, well, they're more like vans, big vans, and they just shove like 40 people in a van. And so you're just like really squished, and sometimes you're standing up or you're like crouched in the corner with all your groceries, or there's tuk-tuks. They're like these little tiny Jeeps. I don't know how like to describe the size of them, but they're not very big. It's like half of a car is like the size of it. And so it's like, it has 3 wheels, and so there's a driver and then there's you in the back. And I miss it so much. It's one of the best experiences, and like the wind is like in your face. And so I really like that about the mission. Also in Reu, well, we call it Reu. It's not just Retalhuleu. They say Reu always. I almost said siempre, but is that they have a lot of temperature. They're like different climates. So my first area was like kind of chilly. Like it was hot, but it was cooler than most places in the mission. Then they have other places that are so hot that you get sunburnt and like super red in 2 hours just on the back of your neck. It's like the sun is just beating down on you. Then they have the mountains where you can freeze. It's like can get to like 40 degrees, and the elders are mostly elders go there, and they're in sweaters and like they just freeze in their house, and they have heaters and like hot showers, and in like the hotter places they only have cold showers. They have no hot water unless you like boil it, which is what I would do sometimes, the shower. But yeah, and the members are incredible. They're so supportive. And the church, I think it's important to remember, and almost anywhere you go, that the church, when it started in the United States, I mean, it had difficulties and problems. People were still learning, like, about the church and the doctrine and some of the, like, rules that are set. And so, like, you have to be patient. I think is really important to remember. I mean, the church started in Guatemala in 1947. And so it's important to remember that a lot of these people have only been members for 10 years. They're really active people. And so, like, you have to be patient in teaching them the doctrine and teaching them why certain things are the way they are. And just remembering that they're learning it. It's new to their country. And so it's important to remember that, I feel. I don't even know where to begin. It's something that is very spiritual for me, how I feel towards those people. So like, they're just like the happiest people on earth. You see the conditions that they live in and the things they go through, yet on the street, they'll look at you, they won't even know you, and say, buenas, buenas. Like, they're saying like good afternoon or good morning, and just everyone you walk past on the street, like, good morning, how are you? And you can't help but love them. No matter how much someone didn't want to listen to our message, they always invited us in and offered us something to drink or something to eat, and they told us how they respected us. And they have a great love for God. A lot of them, I don't know if they fully understand who He is, but they are definitely aware that there is a God. Because everywhere you go, you will see things about Christ, about God, about the Spirit. Maybe sometimes not in the way that you would think that they would be presented, but it's a different culture. It's a different way that they view these things. It's very much a part of their daily life. As you leave, people say that, may God bless you. And I'm like, wait, like, what? Like, everyone just talks about God. This is so cool. Which made missionary conversation so easy. Being able to go and talk to people about the blessings in their life and the presence of God in their lives, and it made it easy to talk to them. They're very hardworking people in the fact that they will get up at the crack of dawn and be working till it's dark. Not everyone, but a lot of people who live in the countryside. I mean, they're harvesting corn, they're doing all these things. And then you see the women who take this corn and then they dry it out and then they make it into a dough and then they make tortillas every day. So you'll hear throughout the streets every day, you'll just hear people going like this. It's because they're making the tortillas with their hands. And so it's throughout the entire day that they do this. And there's never a break because there's breakfast, then there's lunch, then there's dinner. So it's just constant work. Also, I think that they enjoy the simple things in life. Little kids, you'll always see little kids in the street playing with these. It's not even a soccer ball, it's like a little plastic ball. And they'll be playing soccer and just having the time of their lives. And then when I would like go up and like steal the ball from them, they'd all get like so excited. They're like, what? Like, who is this girl? Like, what is she doing? And they would just like love to play with you, and they enjoyed the little simple things. Even just like a little sticker that I would give to little kids, they would just like think it was the coolest thing ever, and they really appreciated it. And that helped me realize, put a lot of things in perspective in my life, things that I needed to appreciate more. I think also it's more to realize, because they have this aspect of the constant need for work, a lot of times it's hard for children to connect with their father, is what I saw a lot of the times. It's not to say that it was like that with everyone, but it was harder because their dad was constantly working so that they could just have food on the table. And then their mom would also be working to bring food on the table. And so it was hard for kids to have a lot of adult supervision, from what I saw. But it wasn't to say that there was no love there. There definitely was. I could see that. And I think it's important to remember it's also very colorful. When you go there, it's just, everyone is dressed. Not everyone. Oh, some women wear the traditional dress, which is like corte. And so it's like just really beautiful patterns with lots of colors. And you see these colors everywhere. It's just so bright. And I really love that. It brought color to each day for me. I just love those people. They're so wonderful. I think the coolest part about Guatemala is that they call them municipios, and it's like just like small little cities. Like they'll have like a road, and then you'll just have like a little city to the side. Each little city has a center like in their town. So they have like a gazebo or something in the middle, and then they'll have like all these benches, and that's like the center of town. And then they have a bunch of businesses in between houses. So it's not like, oh, there's like a bunch of businesses and then you go into a neighborhood and there's houses. You can find businesses wherever. A lot of people will have their own stores in their house. Like, so they'll just have like a window open and you can just ask for anything that they have in there and they'll sell it to you. Like, it's like a store, but it's in their home. So like they'll just be doing their own thing in their house, and then someone will come to the window and then they'll go and have their business, and they'll go back and read their book and just relax. And I also loved that there's bakeries everywhere. I would buy 5 quetzales of bread every day. To like give you an idea, that's like a lot of bread. It's like, it could be like 10 pieces of bread if you really wanted it to be. And so they just have it everywhere. And so it smells like fresh bread every morning, everywhere you go in Rayo. So like Rayo, the actual city, is a lot busier. There's a lot more going on. There's more business-like places in the center. And they have like the hospital and all of those things. But my other 2 areas, it was more like houses with businesses in between. When people like welcome you into their homes, even if they say like you can come in, you always say con permiso, which is like, oh, like excuse me, and then they say propio, like go ahead, like come on in, or adelante. And so like in the beginning that was hard for me, like they said we could come in, you know, like why do I have to be like excuse me? But it just like became part of me. Like even coming home, like when I would go into people's houses, I'd be like, oh, con permiso. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, they don't really care. And then at the end of the meal, you always say, gracias, like, thank you. But even the person who makes the meal, like, they're saying thank you to everyone. And then everyone yells provecho, like bon appetit, basically. But I always was confused. I was like, why is the person who's making the meal thanking us? You know, and so that took me a while to understand as well. I think that something that was really fun as missionaries was Independence Day. For sure, September 15th. It's the Independence Day of the majority of the countries in Central America. And they would have a bunch of parades. And so like all the kids dress up in like really random costumes. Some kids were fruits. Some kids were just dancing, or there's like pageant girls. And then they'd like go down the street, and like the entire street is blocked off that entire day. And it was hard because it was on a Sunday one day, and so like nobody came to church because it was just like, it's tradition to go watch the parade, watch your kids, and just celebrate Guatemala. Another time that is very interesting as a missionary is Semana Santa. It's the Holy Week, so it's leading up to Easter. And it's difficult because a lot of times we don't understand the background of Semana Santa. It has a lot to do with the Catholic Church, and I'm not really familiar with a lot of the teachings. And so it's just like relating the events leading up to Christ's resurrection. And as missionaries, we weren't really allowed to be outside because, like a lot of things in this world, a lot of people have taken it and not made it something spiritual, but rather a time to party. And a lot of times they do things that aren't very appropriate in the streets. And so as missionaries, we weren't really allowed to be outside. But for other people, it is a time to really reflect upon Christ and what he did for us. And it's a time where the kids have school off, and a lot of people go to the beach, spend time with their families. And so it's a really great time for them because they can be with their families, and a lot of people do have work off, which most of the time they don't. And so it's like a big vacation time for a lot of people. So as a missionary, it was hard, but as someone of that country, it's a time to not only celebrate Christ, but also family. At first, it was really hard for me to eat the food because it made me really sick. And then I got really used to it. I love this. So they have like these things they call caldos. It's like a soup, basically. And so they have one like with beef, with beef. And then they have one with chicken. And it's so good because they'll like bring out this broth, and it's like not good for you at all. I'm pretty sure it has like a ton of spices in it, and you can see like the fat in there. And then they'll bring out like a plate like this big, and they'll have the steamed or cooked vegetables. And so you can just add as many vegetables as you want. So they have like whiskil. The best way to describe it, I feel like, is it's kind of like a potato mixed with a cucumber because it's like green and it's like got a different texture. And then they'll have yuca, which is like it's not like a potato, but I don't know how else to describe it. And then they'll have potatoes, carrots, radishes, and they'll put rice even in there. And it's just so good. Like, it has so much flavor in it, and it was my favorite meal. And people were like, why do you like that so much? Like, it's so good. Like, I crave it all the time. And they also like love black beans, plátanos, plantains, fried plantains, and eggs. With it's not sour cream, it's crema, because it like has a different taste from sour cream. But they have that on top, and it is so good. But when people feed it to you as a missionary, like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, all we have are beans and eggs and plátanos. And I'm like, this is like the best meal. What are you talking about? And it's just so good. Like, I've never had black beans. Like, those black beans. They're just incredible. And they would fry a lot of things in egg. Like, a lot of things. Like, they have chile rellenos, and so they take like a bell pepper and then they'll fill it with like beef and like carrots and like all these other vegetables, and they have it cooked, and then they put it in the bell pepper, then they dip it in egg, and then they fry it. And they'll do a lot of things like that with eggs, like herbs. Like, they take like a bunch of herbs and they'll fry them in egg. I wasn't really a fan of that. I didn't like it very much. Oh, and they make something called pepián. It's a lot like, it's similar to mole, but like the sauce is a lot thicker. So it's just like a sauce on top of chicken and then with rice. And it was so good. I loved it so much. They would feed that to us a lot. And chow mein. surprisingly enough, Guatemalans, I would have chow mein at least once a week. But like the chicken has the bones in it still, so that was like weird for me at the beginning, but at the end I was totally fine with it. And then they put ketchup or pica mas. It's like this green hot sauce on top of it. And they love Chinese food too. Like there's always these random Chinese restaurants in Guatemala that people love it. Maxime's is what the one was called that we would always go to on Pire. So that was a lot of the food that they had. Oh, and the fruit. I have to mention the fruit because they have fruit, like, they like bring something to you, like, oh yeah, this is a fruit, and you're like, you can eat this? And they're like, yeah, like, I'll show you. And like this one time they gave us this thing, it looked like a, what are those, like, it's not green beans, like a pea, like in a pod, and it had like white fuzzy stuff on top of it. And then you would suck off the white fuzzy stuff, and that was the fruit. Like, that was the part you ate. And it was so good, but I only had it once. But there were so many things like that. You'd see it once, and then you'd never see it again. But they have fruit like nobody's business, and it's so good. They have little fruit stands everywhere, and then they'll put, like, pepitoria. I don't know what it is in English. It's like this, like, powder with salt and, like, all these other things with lime juice, or lemon. No, lime. Sorry. Lime juice on top of it, and it's so good. I really miss it. And some of the slang words, so they don't speak Guatemalan in Guatemala, they speak Chapin. And Chapin means like someone who is Guatemalan, and the girl would be Chapina. And they always say pura Chapina or puro Chapin. And they always say pues, just like a filler word like or so. What else do they say a lot? Calidad, which means quality is the translation, but it's like, oh, that's awesome, like calidad, calidation. They also say pilas, but pilas means like batteries in other places, but in Guatemala it's like, oh, like, she's so smart, like, she's so on top of it. So they always be like, ah, she's so pilas, and they'll always do, they'll always do that. Not just the missionaries, but like a lot of the members will pick up on it because they're with the missionaries. So we always love to do that. It was really fun. Un montón, they also say that a lot. I don't know if it's really slang there, but they say it a ton. So I studied Spanish 4 years before my mission. I did 3 years in high school and a year at BYU. I think my year at BYU was way more helpful than my 3 years in high school. And I loved the language before it was my minor, so before going on my mission. So I was really enthusiastic about learning it, and I really wanted to. But I think the hardest thing for me was understanding what people were saying. I could say a lot of things, but I couldn't understand the majority of what people were saying. So I think what was important is that, like, when I was walking with my companion, she was from Mexico, so she didn't know English very well. So I would, like, ask her questions and then, like, listen to her responses. And then if I didn't know words, I would ask her, hey, like, what does that mean? I'm not sure what you just said. But I also learned that in Mexico, they speak a lot differently than they speak in Guatemala. So then I would say the word she taught me, and no one would know what I was saying. And then she would say it, and no one knew what she was saying. And then I realized, oh, like, Mexico has a lot of different words for things. So I learned a lot of words from Mexico in the beginning. And then I also practice a lot with missionaries, like Latin missionaries in zone meetings and district meetings. I would try and talk to them and, like, have them help me with my pronunciation and with learning new words, because a lot of them knew English pretty well. And so they would help me, and then I would help them with their English. So that helped a lot. I think the most important thing is to do your best just to, like, study the scriptures in English, but also have your Spanish scriptures side by side, so that you can look at how they would say that in Spanish, or what it would be phrased like. So then you can learn new words. I think learning the words in the gospel are really important, but also conversation words, like being able to have conversations with people, let them know that you care about them, you want to know their interests, what they like to do. I think it's important to get to know your investigators more than anything in the beginning, So that way when you do teach them the gospel, it can be personalized. So learning the words in the church are important, but it's also important to learn other words as well. As a sister missionary, especially as a sister missionary from the United States, you have a lot of people who will catcall. They'll just yell things at you, things that really aren't very appropriate. And so I think it's just really important to not be rude, but also not really give them a lot of attention, just to remember your purpose and why you're there. And that way you don't have people following you, especially when you walk by bars, to try not to make eye contact with anyone. I had several drunk men chase me down, and so we had to run. So that was kind of scary, just in the fact that I knew I was safe, but it was just I just didn't feel comfortable. And so I think it's important just to know how to be kind, but also to be very clear in what your purpose is and that you need to be respected. As a sister missionary, I think it's important that sisters know, especially with the weather, I mean, elders, it pours. It rains hard. I've never seen rain come down like that before in my life. And so the elders, they would get wet, but they're just in their white shirt, and it doesn't really matter for them. But as a sister missionary, you have to be very careful about your clothing, and that you have to think about, if it's wet, is it going to be revealing? Will it be appropriate? And so you have to make choices accordingly, I think is really important. Also knowing that carry around an umbrella. I never wanted to. In the beginning, my scriptures got soaked. I got soaked. I got sick. It wasn't fun. So buy an umbrella ASAP. That's what I did if you're there during rainy season. And that will help prevent those problems with clothing being see-through or anything like that. So I think it's important to remember that. And I think also just to remember that as a sister missionary, you have a very important role. Not to say that elders don't do this, but to maintain order and keep the spirit, and especially in zone meetings and district meetings, to help remind each other of your purpose as missionaries and that you are representatives of Jesus Christ. I think that a lot of times it's easy, not for elders to forget. I don't want to diss elders, but they bring a more playful side, definitely, in general. And sisters tend to be more serious, and I think that's why it works so well together, because you get the best of both worlds. You need to be fun and outgoing, but also need to have that serious side, and so you learn from each other. And so being able to be flexible, especially when you don't agree with your zone leaders, it's good to be flexible with them and be understanding, and remember that what they have to say is of importance as well. And that's why we are different. Gender is an essential characteristic, as it says in the proclamations. So to remember those things, that sister missionaries aren't better than elders, and elders aren't better than sister missionaries. It's together as a missionary force we can act as representatives of Jesus Christ. To anyone who's maybe not entirely sure if they want to go on a mission, I would just tell you, ask the Lord, and if it feels right, go. Don't even hesitate. Go. I waited far too long and put off way too many impressions of the Spirit. And I always wonder, if I would have acted sooner, how things would be different. But I know that this is the plan the Lord has for me. And I don't want any of you to have those regrets. Go. It will bless you. It will bless the lives of the people you teach. It will bless your spouse, your children, and so on and so forth. And I just hope that you know that no matter what happens out there, as long as you are doing what the Lord has asked of you, that's the most important thing. My dad told me something very important. What you do out on the mission is between you and the Lord and no one else. If anyone else tells you you need to do something better or differently, go to the Lord. It's between you and Him, and it's something that will change your life and help you to really come closer to your Savior. and you will begin to understand what he went through. And you will begin to love as he did. But you also will not understand how he did it all. After going in his shoes, you realize really how hard it is. And I testify that as you serve him, you will come to love him and draw closer to him. And he will be forever grateful for what you do in his name. And I just hope that you guys make these choices to best serve him, not for your own personal gain, but for him. This lady, we only taught her twice. Actually, I only think she let us in once. Her name is Hortensia. She was in my first area. I can still walk to her house. I know where it is. One time, we had leftover food from a member's house, because when they feed you a ton, and it's like hard to eat it all, so you don't want to offend them and not eat it all, so you take it home and then you eat it later. So we had like a little dish, and we like knocked on this lady's door, and she like looked at us, and can we like share a message with you? And she's like looking at us, and then like she's like looking at my companion's food, and we're like, do you want some food? And she's like, yeah, like I would really love that. And we went into her home, and as we started to teach her, I don't even know what it was. I just felt like I could see her like our Heavenly Father does. And I felt so much love for this lady that I didn't even know. Like, I still remember her. I still remember what she looks like. Who was just struggling, and she had so many things going on, and even if it was just she could feel something, feel some peace as we were there in her home. Like, she wouldn't let us back in, and it like broke my heart. But I know that even if it was just that moment of peace that she needed, that we were the instruments in the Lord's hands to do that. And I think that was a really powerful experience. It wasn't really something that profound, you know, like that we did or something that happened, but it was really neat. And in that same alleyway leading to Hortensia's house, I was behind my companion one time. I was walking side by side with her, and I saw this dog coming at us. There's dogs everywhere in the street, like really gross. They're not pets, they're just in the street. And I like had this feeling like this dog is gonna attack you. And so I moved behind my companion, and the dog like went to the edge of the wall, and as I'm walking past the dog, I see it come at me, and its mouth open like to go bite my leg, and then it bounced back and hit the wall and ran off. And I knew in that moment that it was the Spirit protecting me. Like, I can't say like for sure, you know, that like there was like the shield or anything, but like I could feel that Heavenly Father was looking out for me, and that the Spirit was protecting me, and that as I listened to that counsel to move, that I was protected. So that was a really neat experience of just like simply following the Spirit and being obedient provides you the protection you need as a missionary. You don't need to worry about safety if you're obedient, in my opinion. I noticed that in my entire mission. There were so many experiences where it could have been sketchy, but I followed the Spirit, and I know that the Lord protected me. One person I taught in particular, his name's Darvin. We have the same birthday, so we have like this special connection about our birthdays. He was taught by the missionaries for 8 months, which in Guatemala, that's like a really long time. You usually don't teach people for very long, and they have a desire to be baptized. And he just like, nothing was working, nothing was really happening, and then he like decided to be baptized. And he got baptized. He didn't come to church for 2 months. And then I left the area, and I was like, what did I do? Like, I thought like he was like ready and that he wanted this. And as I have stayed in touch with Darvin, it has been so incredible to see the progress that he has made. I think more than anything, don't lose hope. Sometimes people get scared or they have other influences, but continue praying for them, and they will find a way back. You know, if they follow the Spirit, they receive the Holy Ghost. And if they're worthy of that Spirit, then they'll know the things that they're supposed to do. So my very last Sunday on the mission, I was sitting there, and he was in my first area, so like not even close. And I'm sitting there in the pew, and I look up and I see Darvin walk in with like these little bags, and he like comes up to me and he's like, "Hermana Webster, like, I couldn't let you leave this country without telling you thank you." And it was in that moment I realized that all of my efforts did mean something, whether it was just for Darvin. And because in my first year, it was so hard. No one listened to us. And then he stopped going to church. And so I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm trying to do the things that are right. And as I've stayed in touch with him, it's been amazing to see how the gospel has changed his life. He sent me a letter explaining how his father had abandoned him when he was a younger boy, and how he felt a lot of hate, and he had a grudge against his father for doing that. And he said, you know, I went and looked for him, and I asked him to forgive me for having those feelings. And he's like, and I love what he said. He said, Jesus Christ makes it all possible. And I think that's one of the greatest things you can hear someone that you taught say, that they've repented and they've come unto Christ, and that they're doing that on a daily basis. Sometimes you won't always see that. You'll see people fall away from the truths that you've taught them. But I think it's important to remember to love them always, because they need that love. And when they think of you, they're going to think of the feelings that they had as you taught them. And they'll remember the peace that that Spirit brings as you continue to love and support them. And to really let them know that you care about them and desire for them to continue in the path that you've taught them and shown them. I think that's when you realize that you really are a representative of Jesus Christ. When you can help others change, because it's only through Him that they can do that. There's just so many people, so many stories. I mean, I could talk for days, and I could go through my journals and tell you about so many people that I don't even remember like having lessons with them, but I write about the experiences that we had with them. And those people remember those experiences. There were so many people, oh, I met with missionaries 15 years ago and we sang this song. And they'll say a hymn and you're like, that's incredible that you remember that. And it's because of how they feel when you're there. So I think the most important thing as a missionary is to remember to bring the peace of the Spirit. Not something that people haven't really felt before. It's something that changes them and gives them the hope that they can change. I had panza, which is like cow stomach. I only had it once, because after that I made sure that the members, like, I didn't say to the members that made it, obviously, but after I left that area, like, when people were like, oh, what do you like to eat? I was like, I just like everything, but I don't like panza. Like, I made sure they knew that I didn't like it, because it was such a painful experience, because it's like chewy, but you can't like break it off. Like, you have to go like that to get it in your mouth. And I like would roll it up in a tortilla, and like my tortilla, like only the corn tortilla part would come off in my mouth, and I'd still like have the panza left over. And I usually would eat in like 10 minutes. It took me 40 minutes to eat panza, and the members just sat there and watched me. Out of love, I know they did, but that was a crazy experience. Yeah, I definitely did not enjoy that. I remember specifically one time coming out of the church, and I had my umbrella with my one companion, and my umbrella like flew backwards and like broke just because it was so windy and it was raining so hard. And so then we were stuck without an umbrella, and we got soaked. I got soaked a lot on my mission. I would come home and just wring out my skirts, and just like a ton of water would come out, and it became part of my life. So I had to make sure to bag my scriptures. When it rains, bag your scriptures. I learned the hard way. My scriptures are now soaked, but what can you do? I learned how to do this. I think that's pretty cool. I learned how to roll my R's. I've been wanting to roll my R's forever, like learning Spanish in high school and then at the university. I was just like, I can't roll my R's. So my last month of my mission, I finally learned how to roll my R's. So that was really cool. So I do it all the time now in my house so I can keep it. I just love doing it. It's so fun. So I will just always do that. My sister thinks I'm the weirdest person ever. I love it. I think a lot of like skills that I learned too is just like interacting with people, letting people know that they're welcomed. That was something I felt like I had before my mission, but something that was strengthened on my mission. I think that's how a lot of the skills that I developed, I guess if you're saying like skills, kind of like gifts or talents, a lot of the skills I developed on my mission, things that I didn't realize I had inside of me. And so I think that was a neat experience to realize what I was capable of. So they don't really talk a lot about pronunciation in the MTC, in high school, and anywhere. So it was really hard for me to do the D's. The D's are like a TH, so it's like instead of a D. And so like I would always say todo, but I would say todo, and it sounds like toro to them. And so like I couldn't say a lot of things. So a lot of times people thought I was saying one thing and I wasn't saying that. And so then they would start laughing. And they would just like sit outside the church while we were waiting for someone to come open the gate. And they'd be like, Hermano Webster, say estacionamiento. And I was like, and I would like struggle and they would just start laughing and they loved it. And so now they'll still call me today, Hermano Webster, say this. And like, just to see if I can say it. So that's fun. I don't remember like a specific moment where I said something really bad, but it was good. I think more than anything, interacting with my companions has been the greatest life lesson. My one companion, our companionship did not start off on a good note at all. And she looks at me and she goes, how did you feel today? I was like, it was fine, like I just didn't want to really get into it. And she goes, look at me and tell me how you felt today. And I was like so intimidated by her. And in the end, she became one of my favorite people to be around. We were completely different, absolutely different. And she always told me, you're the day, I'm the night. Like, that's us. But it worked. She taught me to relax and to have fun and enjoy myself. And she taught me how to communicate. I think that was really key, communication. Being able to express myself, and I felt like I really gained a greater understanding of who I am and that I'm important. What I have to say is important and that I should say it. It taught me to be a little more upfront with people. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. I'm still learning how to handle that. But I think that my companions, along with the people of Guatemala, taught me to enjoy life and to let others know how I feel for them and to be open with other people. And that has really blessed my life. I think that's been one of the biggest changes, that I'm not afraid or ashamed of who I am, because I know who I am is important. You are so blessed. I cannot even begin to express how much you are going to love these people and how much they will love you. I always felt before my mission, these people need me, but even more than anything, I need them. And that proved to be right. I know that the Lord has called you there for a purpose. You may or may not find out why you were called there, but just enjoy every minute. Enjoy laughing and crying and being there with these people. You will feel and know that they really are children of our Heavenly Father. And I just want you to know that as you serve amongst them, learn from them, be humble, and be willing to accept their culture and who they are, and just love it for what it is. I can testify to you that as you do that, this country and those people will become a part of you. And I will always be 100% Chapina. I know that you have certain gifts and talents that they need. And be yourself. Don't put on the fake missionary, like, I don't know how to say it. Just be yourself. Don't be someone else. Don't pretend like you have to be someone else. Obviously, act like a representative of Jesus Christ. But be who you are. That's who they need. And that's who the Lord called to be there. And that is what will bring you success. Whether that's people coming into Christ through baptism, people coming back to church, planting seeds that you never will find out about, or that you will later on see down the road that have developed into something really wonderful. Just do all you can to share the gospel with those people because they are ready to hear it. And I wish you the best of luck.